What is going on, Cardano friends? Welcome to the channel. My name is Farid, and in today's video, I'm going to be interviewing another fellow member from the MELD team. That is Youssef Srondy. Now, welcome to the channel, Youssef. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Farid. I really appreciate you highlighting the entire MELD team one by one. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Man, not a problem. I feel like I'm just doing my part for the ecosystem. You guys are doing all the hard work. I'm just here to cover it. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, man. All right, so as a part of today's video, you guys, Youssef and I will be talking about his background as it pertains to MELD, his recent experience at the Cardano Summit, as well as the ongoing 25 Days of MELD, which if you guys are not familiar with, is going to be a brand new series of announcements, right, highlighting partnerships and integrations. And they're also actually going to be giving away 100,000 of the MELD tokens. So if you guys want to find out more about the 25 Days of MELD, I'm going to leave the links to that down in the description below. Now, if it's your guys' first time here on the channel, I aim to provide you guys in the community with the latest news, tutorials, and reviews when it comes to the top projects, MELD being one of them. So if you guys like these videos, please make sure to tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by, consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions for Youssef and I, then please leave those down in the comment section below. All right, Youssef, now that we have all of the introduction out of the way, we're just going to jump straight into it, man. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, your role at MELD, and what your functions are?
Absolutely, my pleasure. So I'm Youssef. I actually run all of the partnerships at MELD. Whenever we handle with we speak to third parties, whenever there's something that needs to be done between MELD and another company, whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, I'm usually involved in that process. I always make sure that communication is going well, and yeah, I'm just here to coordinate the entire thing. Not only that, but as you know, currently we're running the 25 Days of MELD. So this was a project that I've been working on. Well, some of the partnerships that we're announcing have been in the works for about 6 months. Others a bit shorter, so about a month or two. But Ken came to me about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago and said, listen, now I think it's a great idea to do something Christmas related for MELD and end of the year in a strong manner. And so yeah, so I've been working on the 25 Days of MELD. We're speaking to all the different partners and making sure this is a great success. So that's basically most of my job right now at MELD, besides other things related to, for example, market making, exchange listings, all that stuff. That's my core, let's say, position and role.
Got it. And we're actually going to be talking about some exchange listings here in just a minute. There was a little bit of some news leaking about some big collabs. So we'll get into that in just a second. But as Youssef mentioned, man, I think the 25 Days of MELD have been really key, especially over the course of the last 2 weeks. We've seen you guys strike partnerships, or at least announce partnerships with the likes of the Cornucopias Metaverse. You guys also collab with the Virtual Metaverse, as well as Carta Station, ADA Handle in terms of infrastructure, as well as Web3 Auth.io, MinSwap, Wing Riders, and just so many different protocols. And so it's been a really awesome experience for me to see this. I know you guys have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, but to finally get to show that off to the public. And then over the course of the 25 days, I mentioned this in my last call with Charlie Robertstadt, right? I feel like the way that you guys did this was very strategic. And there's been a lot of constant attention for MELD, right? So you guys didn't just drop all of these at once. You guys kind of teased them out, which I think is keeping people's interest. Now that we have your introduction and the background out of the way, let's kind of switch gears a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the Cardano Summit. And so this was an event that took place in Lausanne, Switzerland. I know they had a virtual summit where members like myself who are in the United States who couldn't attend were able to kind of log in and virtually attend some of the meetings and events, but you were actually there in person. So like, how was that? I know you were there with Trim and Martin, but like, what did you get to experience and how were you guys able to represent MELD over there?
Well, actually, yeah, thanks for asking. It was my first ever crypto conference because I only joined the crypto, let's say, ecosystem and community, and more specifically the Cardano community a little less than a year ago. So I was really, let's say, this was my first ever interaction with the entire with all the projects that I've been building and all the ambassadors and everybody who's a supporter of Cardano and non-supporters who would just come, to see what's happening. And it was actually super, yeah, I just had a great time. I met so many people that I have been speaking to over the last year virtually, and to kind of get to connect with them on on a personal level, and get to finally see their legs and their feet instead of only their heads. It was awesome. It was a lot of familiar faces. It was also a lot of new faces. It was my first time also seeing Charles Hoskinson on stage and interacting with him. So I was actually I was super happy by how, let's say, welcoming the community was. I already knew that from working in this space for a while, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just nice to, I've been working remotely. This was for over a year. This was my first time kind of leaving the house to meet other people in the crypto community, despite being a partnerships lead. So yeah, I just met a lot of amazing folks, and we had a great time. And honestly, I hope to go to next year as well, because it's lots of really cool announcements were made, and I was glad to be there to soak it all in person.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear that. And that's one thing that I've noticed about Meld. You guys are doing a really good job of making sure you guys are staying in tune with the community by attending these different events, right? So you yourself, or excuse me, Youssef yourself, as well as Trim and Martin all attended the Cardano Summit. I know that Matt Nash, Charlie, and Matt Tristan also attended the CNFT Con and Rare Bloom events with myself, right? And so it's really good to see that, like, because you guys are so spread out, you guys have the ability to attend these different events that are hosted across the globe, right? So it's definitely my wish to be able to attend one of these events in the future. And hopefully I'll get to be able to see your legs in person, and actually see you face to face as well, man. So I definitely appreciate that, man. And I'm really glad that you guys are able to represent Meld over there. Now, next, I want to talk about the actual 25 days of Meld, right? So you're head of partnerships. You've kind of had this really close and in-depth relationship with these projects that you guys are now announcing now. But out of the 14 or 15 days that have been announced so far, what would you say has been your favorite partnership and why?
My favorite partnership was definitely Kyber Network, because Kyber Network was a partnership that we announced recently, and we were afraid of how the community would perceive, let's say, our first partnership with a multi-chain within the multi-chain narrative, right? And we've mentioned this to the community time and time again, that our goal eventually is to, go be blockchain agnostic, start off in Cardano, because of all of its benefits, but eventually, as any project that wants to expand, it's like expanding to different countries, right? You have to you start in your home country and then you expand to different places. And so we were thinking, okay, how is the best way to phrase this? What is going to be the reaction from the community? Is this going to be a like? Is this going to be disliked? And to see how much support and how much, let's say, joy there was that we're going to be operating not only let's say within the Cardano sphere, but also the EVM sphere eventually. That I was really pleasantly surprised, and so this was something that we had put a lot of thought into as to what's the best way to announce this to the community. And we thought that having a big partnership and perhaps multiple partnerships in the future related to that would be a good way to kind of set the tone, and to see that the community really accepted it and thought there was a good idea was kind of a sigh of relief, because we know it can be that a lot of blockchains, whether it's on Cardano or even other chains, people tend to be tribalistic about their chain and tend to think that their chain is the best, and every single chain has pros and cons. There's no denying that. So we wanted to make sure that the Cardano community knew that we were here to stay. We were Cardano first. We're going to be launching our protocol on Cardano in a few months, hopefully, and so that's where we start. But we have the goal eventually to expand as any large company that wants to make an impact. So yeah, this was my favorite partnership, because I just love that we were really well received by the community. So that was really important to us as well.
Yeah, and for those of you who were not able to attend, there was a recent AMA actually with Ken Oling and a few other members, including Pepe Blasco, who is your new CTO, in which Ken basically addressed that, right? So Ken did a really good job of introducing the multi-chain narrative to the community, and he even took questions right then and there on the AMA. I know that there were some concerns coming from the community, kind of more or less related to the tokenomics. I think there was a little bit of concern as to whether or not MELD will be increasing their token supply and things of that nature. And Ken really kind of just shut that down right away. He's like, hey, you guys, don't worry. This is not us leaving Cardano. And this is not us changing the tokenomics of the MELD platform. So I think that was a really big piece that the community wanted to just make sure would not be getting changed. I'm super excited for it. And I think that, when it comes to compatibility across blockchains, that's all going to increase the awareness as well as the liquidity for the MELD platform, right? And so if we're believers in MELD, that's ultimately what we want to see. We want to see mass adoption, which means that we have to start looking outside of just Cardano. And then if we want liquidity for people to actually use the platform, right? Just like how right now, the majority of the DEX liquidity is on MinSwap, which is why a lot of people go to MinSwap. It's going to be the same exact thing for MELD, right? If MELD has liquidity and we're cross-chain, we now have an incentive for members to actually flood in and use the MELD platform. So I'm all for it. I'm super excited about that Kyber network collaboration. And I actually kind of mentioned this to Charlie. My favorite one so far, when it comes to at least the metaverse, was Cornucopias. I cover them quite well on this channel. They're one of my favorites. And then I'd mentioned that the Web3 Auth.io collaboration in terms of infrastructure, I think was the next biggest one for me personally, right? Because of how that's going to just simplify the process of regular Web2 folks coming into Web3. I know that we also have, I think, about 10 days left now, right? So we're breaking past the halfway point. As a part of the last announcement, you guys basically released all of the 10 tokens that you guys plan on supporting as a part of the upcoming testnet on January 16th. So we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we get to the testnet, in terms of the last remaining 10 days, what can we expect? I know you guys are probably saving the best for last. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I know that, some things have to be kept behind covers, but what can you share with us in the community?
So I think what I can share is that we've made a point to kind of highlight the Cardano community with the beginning of our partnerships. In the last, we've announced Swing Riders, we've announced MinSwap, we've announced Cornucopias, etc., etc. And these were all very much Cardano centric, right? And I don't want to say the best for last, right? Because we have internally we have different themes for every couple days, and so we've planned around various narratives, and so I can say that the partnerships that will be happening in the last coming days and wrapping up the 25 days of MELD will be more outward looking. It will be more, okay, we've announced the partnerships in the Cardano community, we've announced different ways to track us and different applications that are supporting us already. And so now we're saying, okay, what's the future of MELD looking like? What can people expect to see MELD in 2000? Where can people expect to see MELD in 2023? What can people expect to do with MELD in 2023? And so you'll most likely see partnerships that are around that narrative instead of potentially looking more inward looking where we currently are right now. So hopefully that doesn't say too much, but at the same time it teases a little bit what people can expect.
Yeah, it definitely does that. And so I'm also waiting on the exchange listing narrative to kick off. I'm rubbing my hands here, but let's actually just talk a little bit about that. So you guys had tweeted actually earlier on Twitter that you guys have some instructions on Binance and Coinbase as to how to buy the MELD token. So like, I feel like that in itself is a really big hint. But like, what do you have to say about that?
So I actually woke up to this morning and seeing that Ken had shared this in different groups, and it got to all the ambassadors, of course. So with exchange listings, it's a bit tricky because right now on Binance or Coinbase, there are no Cardano native tokens on there. Whenever there's going to be a whole new blockchain that's going to be integrated within a certain exchange, they usually need a pioneering asset. And so we've seen, for example, World Mobile in the past being the pioneering asset because they brought KuCoin, they brought MEXC to the Cardano community, and so I can't tell you what listing we're going to be expecting. And we've mentioned on our roadmap that we would be expecting a listing in the next quarter. But within the 25 days of MELD, we may or may not announce an exchange listing. But I can tell you that regarding, let's say, Binance or Coinbase, it's a lot more difficult when there hasn't been any other Cardano native token on there yet. So I don't want to let's say disappoint the community, but it is something that we're very much investigating. Whether that's going to be announced in like in this quarter or next quarter or at a later date, that's up to be seen. But I think that there's a higher chance that we end up listing somewhere where other Cardano native tokens are currently listed right now than on somewhere where there hasn't been any site of Cardano native tokens yet. So.
Got it. Got it. So for anyone in the community who is an investigator, we need to start finding out where the Cardano tokens are listed on these much bigger exchanges. But it would really be awesome to see, and this is on a serious note, it'd really be awesome to see MELD be that pioneering token or that pioneering asset, whether it's on Binance or Coinbase. Again, I think you guys are really kind of laying down the foundation in the groundwork. And what you guys are doing now is showing the community that you guys really are credible in terms of what you guys are building. And yeah, I think that's really just kind of take us over into the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the testnet, right? So you guys have been building for quite a little bit now. You guys, I believe, launched your token staking platform at the end of January. The MELD token is now available for trading within, some of the top Cardano dexes. That said, the January 16th testnet is going to be right around the corner. And so in terms of, planning, expectations, what can we look forward to? Again, I know that you guys just released the 10 assets that we're going to be able to actually use as a part of the testnet, which include, the tokens for MinSwap, Wing Riders, the Cornucopias token, even Hosky got a mention in there. There's IUSD, IBTC, So in terms of the upcoming testnet, what can we look forward to?
So the testnet, we've been thinking really hard about what's the best way to kind of bring this to the community and people who've been following us and who've been with our team, supporting us for the last year. And we thought, we want it to be a celebration. We want it to be a celebration of our hard work over the last year. We want it to be a celebration of the Cardano ecosystem as a whole. And that's why we made an effort to bring over, let's say, all the other projects that have either released or not released yet, but who have been building on Cardano for a while. We wanted to highlight all of those other tokens as well and include them in our testnet launch. Now, of course, these are testnet tokens, which means that they inherently don't have any value. It's for testing purposes, but we wanted to also replicate the behavior of what you would expect to see on mainnet. And that's why, as we mentioned, our partnership with Wing Riders, not only integrating them into our MELD app, which means that users would not have to go to the DEX directly to swap their tokens and then have to come back. You could all do it directly from the MELD app, so that to improve the user experience. But we also mentioned that they would be our official testnet partner. And that the reason why we wanted them to be our testnet partner was because it's one thing to use the MELD protocol and to be able to borrow some tokens, for example, whatever token it may be, or use, let's say, ADA as collateral to supply your testnet ADA to a liquidity pool. But it's another thing to actually have those funds and then be able to use them in some way or another. And so it's really, we thought, okay, if we want to replicate the behavior, then what are people usually doing once they have those tokens? They're probably going to end up providing liquidity, swapping those tokens for other assets. They're probably going to be yield farming, whatever it is. And so we thought, okay, in order to replicate this kind of scenario in mainnet, but then having that in testnet, then we wanted to have some liquidity pool set up on Wing Riders so that people will have the opportunity to then go provide liquidity to those liquidity pools. They'll be able to swap their tokens, and we'll be playing around with the tokenomics of how much, or not the tokenomics, but how many tokens each user will have in their wallet. So there's going to be a faucet where people will just be able to choose how many tokens they want from each project and then play around with that. And we'll be working our best to also mimic the behavior of let's say the realistic prices of the current tokens on mainnet. So we're gonna try. It's a bit difficult, but we'll try to have somewhat of a realistic value to the token for that short period of time for the testnet, and so that people will not only, we don't want to have a liquidity pool where the token of X project is actually changing so much. It is so volatile every couple minutes because there's so many people entering and leaving. So we're going to be kind of behind the scenes trying to manage to a certain extent the prices so that it doesn't end up being insanely high or insanely low. and keep it more or less like manageable, so people can trade without too much, let's say, volatility. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, we want people to be liquidated so that they see how the liquidation process happens. We want people to, to leverage trade by rewinding, like winding up their position, and using an asset, borrowing again, then using that asset to borrow on top of that, and then supply that. So all of these things, everything that could happen either well or not well, we wanted it to happen on the testnet so people can have the full, let's say, experience. But yeah, in terms of that's in terms of the experience. In terms of the rollout,
Mm-hmm.
as Ken mentioned in the AMA, we'll have, let's say, for the first, I'm not sure how much time. You can maybe assume a week or two. We'll
Mm-hmm.
have perhaps slightly more, slightly less, but we'll have a let's say private group of people who will be able to break stuff initially, so that we make sure that when we release it to, let's say, the general public, and we have potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands of people playing around with it, it's stable and it doesn't break completely, as we've seen with other test nets. So our goal is to do that with the sole purpose of making sure that we have something that is going to be as close as possible, familiar to the mainnet experience.
I really love that. And there's just a few things that I want to kind of elaborate on there. So first, you talked about the MVP approach, right, with this closed off testnet. I really like that because coming from the Web 2 background, right, in terms of development, that's really how they always approach things. They get the very base product out there, and then iterate on top of that. And so I think the fact that you guys are approaching it in that sense as well, giving access to a small group to kind of just make sure that, hey, before we incorporate everybody else, let's make sure that we've got all the small stuff knocked out, makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the instructions and how members can actually join that whitelist or that private testnet. But that's the first thing I wanted to mention. Now, the next thing you talked about was the integration of the Wing Riders decks within the actual MELD app or the MELD platform. And that's key. I think MELD has really I think they're going to set the standard when it comes to seamless user experience, right? So again, talking back about Web3 auth.io, making the entrance into MELD seamless. But then now when you actually get into MELD, you have an integrated DEX that allows you to do everything that you said, swap, stake, do all these different functions and features that you would normally see happen, right? And so if you can keep people inside of the MELD app, instead of letting them, or having them have to go to one additional source, or even just have them jump through an additional hoop, I think makes their life easier. And I think that in the long run, they're really going to appreciate that. Now, you also talked about mimicking the testnet experience to where we can kind of foreshadow what to expect on the mainnet, which I think is also huge as well, right? So I think anything that you guys can do to make it as realistic as possible will, I think, also give the users an idea of what to expect once the actual launch on mainnet comes. Now, that doesn't mean that you guys won't make updates. I'm sure that you guys will be pushing out, bug fixes and enhancements as you guys give community feedback. But to hear that you guys are really going to strive to make this as realistic as possible, as early as possible, is very reassuring as well. So I'm going to be looking forward to that, man. I'll be looking forward to getting some Hosky and just kind of messing around in the testnet and breaking things for you guys. And I was actually able to also be a part of the Ackerman testnet, and that was a really awesome experience. I know that during that particular one, you guys incentivized the community, right, by also giving away rewards to the top testers who had the most amount of transactions, the ones who were just doing different things. And so hopefully you guys kind of gamify the testing as well that way. But I'll definitely be around to provide my 2 cents once that kicks off. So I really appreciate that. Next, we're just going to kind of move into Crew3. So we probably should have talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the 25 days of MELD, but you guys are giving away some of the MELD tokens, right, for people who are participating within the Crew3 quests. And so if you guys aren't already aware, Crew3 is going to be a Web3 management tracking platform that the MELD team is currently using, as well as some of the other bigger communities within the crypto space in general, right, to engage with their communities, and just to kind of gather them all in a single place. So what has been your experience when it comes to Crew3? Obviously, you're dealing with the partnership side of things, but I think you guys are, collaborating and integrating that into MELD for a specific reason. Can you kind of give us an idea as to what your goals and plans are with that platform?
So yeah, Thanks for bringing that up. I know Slem was a big advocate for Crew3, and Victor, one of our ambassadors, is also really helping us a lot with managing all of that, because we get a lot of requests, and we have to, there's 200 300 people sending a bunch of completing different quests on Crew3, and we have to find a way to sort through all that, and get at the end of the 25 days of MELD, we have to give the rewards to the top people who have the most guesses, right? So in that sense, it's been super useful for community engagement, because that way you can do everything in a seamless manner. And personally, I've been also working with Victor on also.
Mhm.
We've had issues with bots before, where if you try to do anything incentivized on Twitter, there's going to be a lot of bots who are just here for the airdrop or for the tokens, and they're not really like members, obviously, of the community. And so Crew3 kind of adds that added layer of friction for people who just want to game the system, and so it's been crucial. I think a lot of other projects are probably going to start implementing this, as it's become extremely useful to have these types of things, because a lot of the crypto marketing and anything related to that usually involves some sort of airdrop, some sort of incentives to get the community excited about it. And so it's become, I think, something, a part of our toolkit, and probably something that we'll be using for the testnet launch, perhaps something that we'll be using for other competitions. So definitely it's been a great value add for the entire experience when it comes to dealing with the community. And yeah, we have our ambassadors to thank for that. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, and I mentioned that in my interview with Charlie. I really love the fact that MELD is open to hearing from their ambassadors. So to see you guys actually kind of pick up and move forward with Crew3 was a big plus, I think, in my eyes for you guys, because it showed that you guys really are listening to what the community is saying, especially the ambassadors. Now, that said, there is an 80-way tie on Crew3 right now. I think there's been 20 some odd quests, so far. And I've been doing daily videos updating the community as to what is going to be the upcoming partner. And then I also review the leaderboards as a part of those videos. And yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of interaction, which is great, right? But I hope that those people understand that those pots are going to be split amongst them all, because they all decided to participate. So maybe, you guys bump it up, and just as an extra Christmas present, show them some extra love. But again, it's a really an awesome opportunity, and I'm really glad that you guys are moving forward with that. Now we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Youssef, I do appreciate your time. And so I've got 2 more questions for you. The next one is gonna be about the future plans for MELD, and then we're gonna wrap up by talking a little bit about how members in the community can get in touch with you. So as it pertains to MELD partnerships and marketing, right? So you're the head of partnerships. What can we expect in terms of upcoming partnerships? And then moving forward, what is the plan for MELD in general?
Okay, well, I'll try to answer this as without spoiling too much. But past the 25 days of MELD, I think we're all going to take a nice break.
Yeah, much deserved. You deserve it.
It's been an insane December for us on behind the scenes managing all of this. But we have the testnet that's going to be happening very soon. So that's going to be taking up a lot of our time. And as we prepare for the Cardano protocol launch, which is hopefully going to be happening sometime at the end of Q1 or at the latest early Q2, we're aiming I'm personally going to be aiming to make sure that from a partnership perspective, anyone that's going to be involved in this, whether it's Wing Riders being our testnet partner, or any type of services that we need in order to make the mainnet launch a success. I'm thinking, for example, Oracle services, or potentially even exchange listings, because that's going to be a big deal once we go on mainnet. So those are going to be my, let's say, short-term priorities. And then from, let's say, more long-term priorities, then obviously once we go with our multi-chain narrative, right, and we go on an EVM chain, then at that point, I have to also, find all of the partnerships that are going to be necessary for us to launch our EVM, let's say, protocol. So that's super important. And also on the fiat side, you can probably expect more partnerships from that aspect, because our neobank is very much in progress. We're making a lot of we're signing a lot of contracts to get this ready for sometime in Q2. But it's definitely something that's let's say behind the scenes happening. Although it's a separate department, we have a whole team just focused on the fiat side, because the DeFi and the fiat, despite we're trying to meld them together, right? But we need people, dedicated people working on both things. So you can expect a lot of fiat related partnerships from let's say from Meld and from my end, and you can expect partnerships from the EVM stuff, and then you can also expect partnerships from everything that's needed to make the mainnet launch a success. So those are the three key things that we're working day and night to make happen, and hopefully make the entire Meld launch a success.
Yeah, I think you guys are well on your way to that. And the 25 days of Meld so far has been a testament to that, right? You guys have been working very diligently, and the community is finally seeing all the hard work that you guys are putting in. So I'm very thankful for that. And I definitely wish you guys the best of luck, especially when it comes to partnerships moving forward. That said, if there's anybody who's been listening to this video, right, who might be wanting to get in touch with you, and this is from a project perspective as a potential partner, you know, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, since you're kind of the head over that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the best, I'm always on Telegram because that's where most of the crypto people live. So you can reach me at SRONDS. So you can probably put that in the show notes. And also my email address is youssef@meld.com. So that's fairly straightforward. So if you want to reach out to me for any potential partnerships that you think could be great for Meld and for your respective project, then please try to reach out to me on those two channels. That's the fastest way to get to me.
Got it. Nice and simple. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Youssef, we're going on about 30 minutes now. And so I think we're going to go ahead and close things off. We got to talk to you a little bit about your experience at the Cardano Summit. We heard about your background, the partnerships you guys are kind of working on now, and then some of the ones that you guys have already announced as the 25 days of Meld. And so are there any closing comments or thoughts that you want to share with the community here?
I just want to say thank you so much, Farid, for taking the time to make this content and to publish all these videos, whether it's about Meld or about the Cardano community and everything crypto related. So first of all, great job doing that.
Thank you.
And to the entire Cardano community and to people who are interested in Meld, I really am so excited to get to the mainnet launch, hopefully happening very, very soon. And let's start with the testnet first and see if we can't break a few things before then. But it's been a huge, you know, let's say we survived it's still ongoing, right? But we survived, let's say, the worst parts of the crypto winter, and we're still here, and we're going to be launching on testnet next month. So I think that I'm super proud of the entire team, and I'm super proud of the entire community for continuing to believe in us, for being so patient with us as it's taken over. We're getting close to over a year in development for the Meld protocol, and so I'm just so excited to finally show this to the entire community. They've been craving it, and we can't be more excited to give it to them. So yeah, thanks a lot for supporting us, and we're really excited to bring this to you very shortly.
Yes, it's my pleasure, and thank you for all of your guys' hard work again. I think the entire community is just really excited and ready to, you know, finally be able to pitch in and give their thoughts on what you guys have been building this entire time. And again, thank you very much, Youssef, for your time. I definitely appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and get this video up as soon as possible for the community. Again, being that we're right now in the throes of the 25 days of Meld. Now, if you guys appreciated this video, then please make sure to tap that like button. Again, if you guys are just stopping by the channel for the first time and you appreciate this, then consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions for myself or Youssef, I will leave his links to his socials and his email down in the description below. That said, Youssef, again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll catch you in the next one.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Farid. Appreciate it.